I'm Rob Shauf, creator of Go Go Mach Rocket Sheep, and you are listening to the True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book creators and supporters. It's July 26, 2021. I'm John Swinimer. If you want to drop me a line, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. On this episode, I chat with Rob Shauf about Go Go Mach Rocket Sheep. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. It's also available on the True North Country Comics channel on YouTube. You're invited to like and subscribe. Based in Western Canada, Rob spends most of his comic-making efforts on his comic strips, including Charlie and the Ghost, Space Chuck, and now Go Go Mach Rocket Sheep. He's also dabbled in children's book illustration, graphic design, and animation. Rob claims his absolute favorite thing to do is help others discover and develop their own creative self-expressions. Printed in glorious grayscale, the Go Go Mach Rocket Sheep comic collection contains over 200 pages of individual comic strips, including the True Shauf comic strips that inspired Rob to create Go Go Mach Rocket Sheep. The collection also includes the Robbie and the Bot comic strips. And so, without further ado, here's my chat with Rob Shauf about Go Go Mach Rocket Sheep. So, Rob Shauf, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I appreciate your time. Yeah, cool. I usually start off the interview by asking the creator about their first comic book. So, I wonder if you remember, what was the first comic book that you read?
Yeah, so I wasn't really big into comic books as a kid, but I was into comic strips. Mm-hmm. And so my first comic book, I suppose, was a collection of Garfield comics.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And the reason I remember is because you could take Silly Putty and squish it into the pages and transfer the comic onto the Silly Putty. But anyway, yep. So and then after Garfield, when I got a little older, I started reading like newspaper comic strips. Mm-hmm. Got really big into Calvin and Hobbes, of course.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And then later on stuff like Get Fuzzy. And then the internet happened and I got huge into webcomics. So, of course, there's like the big ones like Penny Arcade and Mega Tokyo back in those days. But the one I really loved that really got me into kind of comic making for myself is actually called, it's a webcomic called The 10K Commotion. And I don't know, have you ever heard of it?
I'm sorry, I haven't. No, what's it about?
It is. Okay, so it's an amazing webcomic. I love it so much. And it was about Dance Dance Revolution and the video game. And it was the most random, weird comic, but the art style is so beautiful. And I think it's still online. But anyway, yeah, so that kind of got me into, those were my first real comics that I was big into, were those ones. So, yeah.
Nice. Good stuff. Good. Now, certainly great stuff growing up, but I'm wondering who or what inspires you today?
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. So these days, I pretty much love to read any comics. Everything from like Archie comics to I love going to like comic conventions and just finding random people and just buying a lot of their stuff and then reading. But one of my favorite things I think these days is different anthologies. Mm-hmm. So I live in Chilliwack, which is close to Vancouver. And Vancouver is where Cloudscape Comics Society is located, and they put out a bunch of anthologies, and I love all of their anthologies. And also, I like a lot of like Japanese comic makers. They tend to like put out anthologies of their own works, or like you know, they do like short stories that get published in magazines and stuff like that. And so I really like man, I'm gonna botch a bunch of names here, but like one title that I recently picked up was Playground by Hiro Mashimi, Sneeze by Urasama, and then I like guys like Junji Ito with his kind of like horror comic stuff. Not that has like any, I think what it influences me isn't necessarily like their genre or any of that. It's just so interesting to read, and it's so cool, the different things. And anthologies in general I really love because you know, you get such a wide variety of art styles and storytelling techniques within one collection. You know, you read for 5 pages and it's pretty cool, and then you're like, oh, maybe you don't like the next story as much, but there's another cool one coming just around the corner. So Yeah, I would say my modern day these days influences is pretty much anything that I'm reading, and I'm reading a lot of stuff. A lot of Instagram comics, cartoonists is pretty fun to read what they're coming up with. So yeah.
Good, good. Okay, so we're here talking about your latest work, which is Go-Go Mach Rocket Sheep, which is that's a tongue twister in itself. So I
Yeah.
wonder if you could tell me a little bit about it and maybe what inspired you to create this book.
Yeah, okay. So Go-Go Mach Rocket Sheep is a collection of about 2 years worth of daily comic strips that I've been posting online. What inspired me to make it, I've been making like daily comic strips in one form or another for, over a decade and posting them into the obscurity that is the internet. But what started Go-Go Mach Rocket Sheep ones a couple years ago was I was just coming out of trying to do longer form comics, longer form storytelling in comics, and just finding it really difficult. And I went to a Cloudscape meeting in Vancouver where they before the pandemic, of course, they had these meetings where if you're a cartoonist, you can show up and hang out with other cartoonists in person and just make comics and talk. And anyway, so a lot of people that go there, they make like, graphic novels, longer stories, stuff like that. And I was having a conversation with the guy there whose name is Oliver, and he was talking about how he really admires comic strip cartoonists because it's a different skill set from like a comic book or a graphic novel cartoonists, because it's you got to make a strip that punches in 4 panels, and it's got to be coherent, and the art's got to be punchy enough that people want to look at it. And anyway, so for years I was like, oh man, I really want to be this graphic novelist kind of a thing. And then this Oliver, he was kind of encouraging me without even knowing it. He was encouraging me just to kind of make the comics that I like to make, which is comic strips. And even though newspapers are kind of on the outs these days, there's plenty of places people like to read comic strips online. So I got back into posting them, and I came up with the most ridiculous name because I wanted to get the URL, and so I did.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not really a whole much. It's pretty awful name actually when you think about it, because like you said, it's a bit of a tongue twister. But so that's kind of what it is. So this book that I just put out is a collection of about 2 years worth of Go-Go Mach Rocket Sheep comic strips, and I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of those strips. I think they're probably the best ones that I've ever made. I've put out a few books before, but this is the one that I'm kind of most proud of. So yeah.
Congrats, that's good stuff. How would you define the story though, or is there a story behind it?
That's good clarifier. There isn't like an overarching story. I guess I would be best described as for the most part, it's kind of slice of life, like me just detailing what happens in my day-to-day life and then comicifying it. So maybe it's 75% true story with 25% like ridiculous observation or something like that.
Okay.
Or once in a while I'm just like get a dumb idea for a comic strip or a funny idea, something that makes me laugh, and I'm like, I'll make that into just kind of a throwaway strip. So I mean it wouldn't quite be like a gag-a-day comic strip, but it's like there's a little more to it than that. If you're gonna read Go-Go Mach Rocket Sheep, you're gonna get to know quite a bit about how I think and who I am and what I get up to in my day-to-day. But it's kind of slice of life, kind of just having fun. Yeah.
Cool. Good. Want to switch gears a wee bit and talk about the tools that you use to create your art. I wonder if you could walk me through that process.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so my tools that I use to make the art are I'm using an e-reader called a Remarkable to do my sketches. It's an e-ink paper tablet thing, and it's kind of a weird thing to draw on, but it's basically like drawing on a piece of paper, but it has undo. But it's not a precise enough device to actually get stuff looking kind of the way that I want it to. So I just do a quick sketch layer on that, and then I import it into my iPad where I use Clip Studio Paint, and then I clean it up the way that I like and ink it and color it and then chop it up and then post it online. So that's kind of my process in a nutshell, really quick. Yeah.
So, sorry, I must have missed something there. You go from an e-reader and then you import it into an iPad?
Yeah, that's right. So my e-reader, it's called the Remarkable 2. It's an e-ink tablet.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Like it's really limited in what it can do, but I kind of like that because I used to just draw it all on the iPad.
Right.
But it's hard to come up with ideas when you constantly have Twitter notifications and Instagram popping up and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got this remarkable tablet for work. It's like a note-taking e-reader,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
and I started sketching on that because there's no apps on it. It's just like a note-taking app, and that's it. And it has like a pretty good pen. It takes like you can it's got pressure sensitivity
Okay.
and Wacom support and stuff like that, and so it's pretty cool. Yeah, so then I just kind of draw until I get an idea, and sometimes the ideas, I actually get a lot of ideas in my sleep, and I wake up after having a dream of an idea for a comic, and then I make it. But a lot of the times though, I don't have any ideas, so I just sit down and sketch and draw and turn my brain off and see what happens, and I think of something funny, and or something funny pops onto the page just as I'm drawing without thinking, and then yeah, I use that, transferred over to the iPad and Clip Studio Pro. You can email stuff, yeah, from the e-reader
Mm-hmm.
to anything, and you just import it on the iPad and then use that as my sketch layer, and then yeah, ink over top and color it up, and yeah, it's good.
Good. Glad to hear. Glad to hear. So typically when you go to conventions and festivals or you're exhibiting, you get inundated by people saying, how do I get involved and what do I do? And they're fascinated by your work. So I'm wondering, what is the one piece of advice you like to pass along to someone who wants to make their own comic book?
Yeah. I think the best advice is to just do it and to start small. Especially like I'm not like I'm not a household name by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not a large audience cartoonist, but I think that when I was starting out, I thought you kind of had to be like famous almost off the bat, right? And I'm not even close. I'm not famous these days, but I am enjoying cartooning a lot more than I was when I first started, and making books a lot more than I first started. Because when I first started, I was just putting so much pressure on myself to be something that I just straight up wasn't. And that is, a person with I don't know who's got it all together, who knows exactly what they're doing. And I think it's just fun to just start and put something out and then see what happens. So I mean, like for some people that might be, making a zine that you're photocopying at work and handing out to your buddies. And I think that's an excellent way to start. For some people, they might want to do what I did, which is like, just figure out self-publishing and just really enjoy getting something made that looks, kind of to your standards and what you like, and it looks real pro and you're happy with it. And yeah, that's kind of the route that I took. So I think just start making stuff and just make a lot of stuff. And then the second thing would be listen to feedback that people give you, because yeah, nobody is just awesome at anything automatically without getting good feedback from people that they trust, right? And so yeah, I've gotten a lot of good feedback from people who are cartoonists and from people who are artists in other realms, like musicians writing lyrics or whatever, and I give them my book to read through or my comic strips, and they give me some good feedback, and then I take their advice because, I think a lot of people just want to help you succeed. Nobody giving advice, I don't think anyway, is trying to see you fail. So my advice would be, yeah, right. My advice would be start small, just keep at it, and then listen to advice from people because they're only going to help you get better. And there's no reason to not. So yeah, that's kind of what I would say. And I wish I would have listened to myself 10 years ago. I wish that would have been nice.
There you go. Well, you've talked about your new book that's out now, but I'm wondering if you could talk about what's next for you. What's coming down the pipe that you're allowed to talk about now?
Yeah, my next thing that I'm working on is ridiculous, and I'm super excited about it. It is a choose your own adventure comic book. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever read, I think it's called Meanwhile. Have you ever read that one?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's this incredibly intricate comic book choose your own adventure. Mine will not be near as intricate, but it's going to be a sci-fi choose your own adventure. All the dialogue and character development happens in the comic on the top half of the page, and then the bottom half of the page is going to be the choosing of what you're doing, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm going to self-publish that one too. I might try to shop that one around to see if anybody's interested, but yeah, it's pretty niche, so it'll probably be just me.
Well, it sounds like fun, that's for sure. So I'm wondering, where do you recommend that people go online to find about your current and future work?
Yeah, the central place I think would be gogomachrocketsheep.com. Mach is spelled M-A-C-H, like the speed, Mach speed. gogomachrocketsheep.com. But then I'm on Instagram, gogomachrocketsheep, and I'm on Facebook, gogomachrocketsheep. And I'm actually on Twitter just as my name, Rob Shauf, S-H-A-U-F. And then I'm also on YouTube. On YouTube, I post these kind of like art tutorial videos that people can watch and draw along if they want to. That's a lot of fun. I've been having a lot of fun do that, especially with there's a bunch of schools around here that are using them kind of as a way to kill some time in the classroom, and then I get to see all their classroom drawings, which is pretty fun. So yeah.
Cool. Well, Rob, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering if there's something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview.
You did a pretty good job letting me spill my guts about my comic. I'm excited about comics. Sure. Making comics is fun, and yeah, if anybody ever wants to reach out and chat comics, I'm more than happy to. So yeah, don't be afraid to reach out on social media.
Thanks to Rob for the chat. You can discover more about Rob on Twitter at Rob Shauf, that's ROBSHAUF, and online at gogomachrocketsheep.com. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts, and please leave a good rating. Also check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow along on Twitter at True North Comics. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2021.